Kitili. Of course, we'll get to take a look at what has happened in the course of the week. Quite a lot to read into, if I must say so. In a move that seems to put the executive in order, President Uhuru Kenyatta made his way to the Deputy President's office. Should we read a lot into it? Is it a move to show solidarity in the executive, or to show Jubilee Party is actually stable and ready to move on and steer this country up till the 2022 general elections? We'll definitely dissect that. Not just that, we'll also take a look at President Museveni actually coming to Kenya and what it means for a couple of interests in terms of the standard gauge railway, in terms of the bilateral relations between Kenya and Uganda. We'll definitely dissect that. And of course, we are anticipating the State of the Nation address by President Uhuru Kenyatta this coming Thursday. What should the president say in terms of charting the way forward, the legislative agenda number one, in terms of his legacy, the Big Four agenda, which seems to have taken a step back in terms of what the Jubilee government needs to do in order to secure his legacy. This and plenty more, you can definitely look into it. And joining me in studio in terms of dissecting this weighty matters, I'm joined by Kipchumba Karuri, who is a political strategist. Many thanks. Hesbon Owila, who is a political analyst. Mark Bichachi, political analyst. And last but not least, Dismas Mukua, a political risk analyst. Once again, welcome to the Sunday edition. Let's get right into it. President Uhuru Kenyatta's move to hold talks with Deputy President William Ruto at Ruto's office in Nairobi has elicited mixed reactions. A statement by the president's press unit said that President Kenyatta and Deputy President Ruto shared a working lunch at the DP's office, during which the two leaders discussed matters related to the government's development agenda. The lunch comes 2 days after Minority Leader in the Senate, Siaya Senator James Orengo, said there was a plot by Raila Odinga's allies to impeach the Deputy President over alleged gross misconduct. Was in a meeting an attempt by the President to extend an olive branch to his embattled deputy. KTN senior political reporter Patrick Amimo begins our broadcast. Let's take a look.
The Deputy President, Dr. William Ruto, has been under political siege in the recent weeks. On Sunday, a group of Jubilee MPs, led by Minor Commander, asked Ruto and his allies to resign from government if they are opposed to the handshake as well as the ongoing war on graft. And as if to take advantage of the widening rift in the ruling Jubilee party following the handshake, Siaya Senator James allies was swift.
If you want to be the president of Kenya, Raila Odinga, because all these people are your hirings. If you want to be the president of Kenya, there is only one way. Present yourself to the people of Kenya.
We are aware that ODM is planning to overthrow the government of Uhuru Kenyatta. It's not only the deputy president they are targeting.
Wacha leta hiyo impeachment, ndiye atajua kuwa naibu rais ako na watu kwa hii bunge.
While Ruto allies were expressing fury over the planned impeachment, President Uhuru Kenyatta was at KICC to officially open the 124th session of the International Coffee Organization's Council. The president may as well have smelled coffee from the nearby parliament buildings. From KICC, his motorcade snaked to Harambee House Annex, the deputy president's office, for a working lunch. This was a break from tradition, given that the president's office is directly opposite the deputy president's. A statement for the PSCU said the two leaders discussed matters related to the government's development agenda. The meeting lasted 2 hours. But the impromptu invite of the Jubilee parliamentary leadership, Majority Leader in the National Assembly Aden Duale, Majority Whip Benjamin Washiali, and Kato Olemetito, Chairman Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, raised eyebrows. The president will be making a State of the Nation address next week, and a section of Jubilee MPs are pushing for a parliamentary group meeting ahead of the address, failing which the MPs have threatened to skip the president's address. The warming relationship between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga has caused division in the ruling Jubilee. Maybe the president wanted to use the working lunch to gauge the mood in the House and advise on remedial measures. The president and his deputy have also not been reading from the same script on the fight against corruption. A section of MPs allied to Ruto have accused the investigating agencies of being selective and politicizing the war on graft. Given that ODM has warmed up to the war on graft, with a section of its members not missing an opportunity to attack the deputy president, allies of William Ruto have concluded that the handshake is about the Uhuru Kenyatta succession.
Vile una mislead baba, hatutakuruhusu ukuje kumislead the chama ya Jubilee.
Why is it that always to mention kitu gani mheshimiwa deputy president amechukua ambaye anaweza kuharibu jina lake?
Orengo, you are at liberty to bring the impeachment motion of the deputy president. What I will tell you is that it will turn to be a motion of confidence.
The process of removing a deputy president from office is not easy. Senator James Orengo will have to convince an MP in the National Assembly to move the impeachment motion, which must have the support of at least a third of all the members before it can get a nod from the Speaker. This means 116 MPs. ODM has 103 elected MPs. Given the sibling rivalry between the Senate and the National Assembly and the inter-party wrangles, the motion would be lost. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
All right, that's a lunch date that really did raise eyebrows. Allow me to quote James Orengo. He said this referring to the 1997 move when the opposition tried to disrupt the reading of the budget when President Moi was in power in terms of his reluctance to take on constitutional reforms. He said this: some battles are fought to demonstrate courage, even when one knows they will not win. This seems to be the narrative that those allied to Deputy President William Ruto are taking. Yes, it might be flawed in the House, but it might turn to be a move of, actually showing confidence in Deputy President William Ruto's power. So allow me to bring in Kipchumba. Are we reading too much into this, number one? And is it logical for James Orengo, CIA Senator, to actually successfully impeach Deputy President William Ruto? Is it something that might happen?
Discussing about impeachment and impeaching somebody are two different things. It's like talking about food and eating. Those are two different processes. When you talk about food, it is aspirational in nature. Okay. Maybe you are trying to remind the people of the Republic of Kenya that there exists the impeachment remit in our constitution, but activating the same is a different process, because even before you start asking yourself what process will be the impeachment or what it will not be, you need to ask yourself, do they have the accounts that will fulfill that impeachment? Two is the issue of the vehicle that will be used. Impeachment ordinarily will originate from the National Assembly, and Senate will act as a second tier of the process, because it is at the Senate that there will be the hearing, and that is when the person who is being impeached will be called upon to come and now be given a chance to be heard. But when you look at it from a strategic point of view, I think going forward, unless ODM is implementing a political strategy of testing waters, Orengo of late has been saying things which tend to portray, or it is an early give for the ODM strategy. And I don't think the impeachment discussion augurs well with the handshake, because for a long time, politicians allied to William Ruto have been saying that this handshake came to block the bid of the 2022 bid of William Ruto. But when now Orengo comes out and confirms with an impeachment motion from the Blues, that now calls for the issues of, is it true? And then recently we have even heard Orengo saying that there will be a merger between Jubilee and ODM and some other outfits, which the chairman of ODM came out and refuted the claim. So I think Orengo is putting the ODM party in a precarious position. But having studied and having known Raila Odinga, all these are his machinations. He's trying to just test feed to know how deep some of these things are. But the backlash now will be, if you do not do your homework well, you might end up doing what the Belgood member of parliament is saying. You might end up doing the vote of confidence instead of an impeachment motion. Because if you do it in a manner that will not go down well, there are several things that will be brought forth, and it might not impact well in the long-term strategy of ODM.
All right, Hezbon Owila, strategy on one side, and we also have the long process. It must be a tedious process in terms of impeaching our deputy president. Let's look at the strategy part. And yes, let's read into it a little bit too much. In terms of ODM party, we well know John Badi said that if this comes, it might be a little bit too early. We need a proper investigations in terms of linking Deputy President William Ruto with the numerous corruption cases that seem to be aligned towards him, in terms of strategy as ODM party, impeachment, how does this help the ODM party?
Well, first, let me say that from what has been happening, I don't see ODM anywhere. I think there are two different entities here. There is ODM as one of the biggest political parties in Kenya, and then there is Senator James Orengo, as a second liberation fighter, a political luminary in Kenya, and of course a senator who is a senior counsel. And those two are different. I don't think Orengo was speaking on behalf of ODM. At no point did he say he's speaking on behalf of ODM. But then politics is in essence about perception, that whether he speaks for ODM or not, that is what people will perceive. And you can see, most MPs who are allied to the deputy president, like Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, are not even just seeing ODM, they're actually seeing Raila Amolo Odinga. And that's what politics is, that people will perceive what they want to perceive and attend to that. But to be honest, I think we need to give credit to the senior counsel, Honorable Senator James Orengo, that he's bringing alive to the public domain the possibilities of the current constitution. And I think that is what we should attend to. That we have a constitution that cannot allow any errant politician, whether you are at the top level or just at the representative level of MPs and senators. But I think he made it clear that we are not saying that the deputy president is guilty of any corruption allegations, because that follows the due process of the law, which has a higher threshold, because then you have to produce evidence in court. And in the absence of that, we all know that there is nowhere where you can say that the deputy president is culpable for all these things that people are saying.
Yes.
But then he made it clear that the political process through parliament has a lower threshold. And of course, politics is about perception, that if there is some perception in the masses that, you are corrupt, then it is upon the masses through their representatives in parliament and the Senate to make a decision. And I don't think we need to fault him for that. I don't think we need to bring in ODM and politics of 2022. That is the due process. Even if it was me as a deputy president, someone would do that.
Yeah.
And it is good that we have that understanding as a provision that we have in the Constitution. And I think even the people from the deputy president quarters, the honorable member from Belgut, I think, has made a statement that is a lot more cogent. The other MPs who are bringing in the name of ODM, Raila wanting to get to power through whichever door, I think are missing the point. The point is very simple. If they think they have the numbers in parliament, there's no problem. Because today, they might be behind the deputy president. Tomorrow, I might be the deputy president and I might have the same challenges. They will have a provision to go to parliament and either have the deputy president, whoever it will be, kicked out of office, or have the deputy president endorsed, and that will be the end of everything. And I think to that extent, I think Kenyans just need to be alive to the conversation that we are having, that no one is attacking any individual, but to the extent that an individual has pronounced himself, just like the senior counsel was saying, in a way that is attacking constitutional institutions like the office of the DCI. And of course, it's the deputy president together with his foot soldiers. That in itself tells us something about that office, that you have an office, a government that you're serving, but then the institutions that are charged with different responsibilities, you want to reinvent how those institutions should operate.
Okay.
And to that extent, I think any other Kenyan, it only happens that this Kenyan who has come up is a senator who is allied to ODM.
Very interesting. Politics is about perception, Mark Bichachi. According to what I'm gathering, it seems that Senior Counsel James Orengo is out to somehow lower Ruto's political market value in terms of demystifying him. So in terms of perception and politics, the move by President Uhuru Kenyatta to make his way to the deputy president's office, What does it mean politically, number one? And perhaps give us an insight on the links of impeachment on one side and Ruto's foot soldiers, linking all this with, Raila Amolo Odinga.
When your father and mother go out of their way to show you they love each other, then you know there has been a divorce being negotiated at night. That's how you know. Yeah. The fact that every time there's a gaffe or a faux pas that happens, like in Kisumu when the car was being presented and the president's speech was read by a CS and not the deputy, that afternoon we saw the two of them together. The last weekend, the news was awash of various foot soldiers of DP Ruto criticizing the president and the office of the DCI and the fight against corruption. And then shortly after, we saw our parents together again showing brotherly love. That should tell you that there is trouble in paradise. There's no other way of doing it, because there's no need to show people you're okay if you don't think there's something that needs to be covered. That's one. Two, we must very quickly demystify this idea that anyone who is against DP Ruto's rise to power is an enemy of the state. Please understand, we live in a democracy, okay? If Hezbon wants to be a DP and I want to be a DP, it is my constitutional right and democratic expectation that I will do everything in the books to stop him from rising to power. This is a fact of life. So I do not understand why in Kenya people are so sensitive about people trying to stop Ruto. What do you expect them to do? That is exactly what they're supposed to do. And like I've said before, this is not a kingdom where you are trying to stop Prince Harry and Prince William from ascending to the throne. That's not the case. You understand? Even I'm allowed to do it. Dismas is allowed to do it. So let's remove this idea that it is wrong to try and stop someone from becoming president. The third thing that we must underscore is the fact that this country has to figure out at what point is enough enough. Because I live in a country where a governor can decide he will remain without a deputy for months going on years. We have a county assembly in Nairobi where we have no idea whether there is a speaker, an acting speaker, whether the court case has ended or started. We don't know. At the same time, there is a governor here who's declared himself legally blind but still competent to lead that county. We have a governor in another place who has a criminal case in court which set his boundaries where he could go, and then the next day he's gallivanting all across the country. We have a cabinet where people have supervised the pilferage of billions and they're still not resigning. So the question to my countrymen is, at which point do we decide enough is enough? Man, if you look at any issue in this country, everything is done too late. You look at a Chinese farm which disappeared with what? 1.4 billion to China and disappeared with nothing. We've not seen someone resign. We've not seen a permanent secretary do anything. So for me, the impeachment motion has nothing to do with the person of the deputy president. To me, Kenya needs to ask itself, at which point can we say we've had enough? Because this country seems to be fed on a constant diet of crises without consequences to anyone other than the hoi polloi, which is ourselves, suffering in indeterminate pain and anguish. So for me, first, remove this idea that Ruto is some form of sacred cow who must be in the ballot in 2022. I am not against him or for him. I'm just simply saying that no one is an enemy of anyone by stopping them from running for office. You understand? Therefore, this question of impeachment is Orengo, and if you want to pile ODM into that, practicing their constitutional right in terms of being able to ask these questions, which we should ask anyway. And that question, if we are honest about it, MPs should not be talking about how the impeachment will fail at the House. They should be telling us how the deputy president has such impeccable character that bringing up such a thing is an affront to democracy and justice. Not saying that you will defeat it, because the question is, does he have the character that is needed to be a leader in this country? Which is a question which every Kenyan should be subjected to. That's why you have Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So Ruto is not special in being asked, do you deserve to lead this country? I don't understand why people are taking this emotionally. When you're filling those forms for IEBC, don't they ask you the same question?
All right.
So now when you're asked, why are you crying?
Interesting. Dismas, I don't know where to string you in. Democracy, rule of the people, by the people, for the people. Mark Bichachi alludes to the fact that this is a constitutional right. We well know that anyone can actually front that motion, and this time it happens to be Senior Counsel James Orengo, a close political ally to Raila Amolo Odinga and a member of the ODM party. What do you read from this? And in terms of the marriage of convenience, meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto, quite timely. Tell us about it.
Well, there are three ways to look at it. Number one, from a technical perspective, probability of Senator Orengo succeeding in actually getting the motion into the House and it being a success is zero. I mean, failure rate is going to be 100%. He will go nowhere. But at the second level, which is more critical, is about the reputation of William Samoei Ruto and his position as far as the president is concerned. The last couple of days, President Kenyatta, in a very strong manner, has come up to say that he is supporting the anti-corruption fight. He has said he's got 100% confidence in Haji, Kinoti, and Twalib in engaging in this fight. But his deputy is on record as having said, and there is a sycophants, they're on record as having said, they don't trust DCI and they don't trust Haji, meaning there is turbulence. Now, when Orengo comes in, and Owil has indicated that Orengo is an experienced politician. He won his seat the first time he went to the National Assembly at the age of 29. And he's a senior counsel, not because he was given the title from the village, but because of his intellectual infrastructure. So he understands these details just like any other rational Kenyan does. However, what he's doing is introducing reputational liabilities on the brand of William Samoei Ruto. Because, you know, many Kenyans, either by omission or commission, keep on associating that brand to corruption. Wherever there is a case of corruption, for some reason, people will talk about the deputy president. He's not been taken to any competent court of law and he's not been found guilty. But for some reason, he's associated. You even recall when there was a tremor and people started discussing about the movement of land. You know, you saw the jokes on social media. So what Orengo is doing with a lot of success is creating a very close association between corruption and Ruto's brand. And by talking about impeachment, he will say the grounds that he's doing it is around corruption. So now it's going to be, or rather, Orengo has introduced the conversation. So people are beginning to say, why is Orengo introducing this motion? Why is he talking about impeachment? And he keeps on telling people that it's about corruption. So as far as he's concerned, he's dragging Ruto's reputation through the mud and reminding all and sundry that if you're thinking about corruption, the synonym is this particular brand. And you know, that one is doing it with a lot of success. That's number one. Number two, in civilized countries, the president and his deputy would meet on a regular basis. They're even supposed to be meeting every day. When Trump is meeting with his deputy, it's not a breaking news on CNN or BBC. When Museveni is meeting with his deputy, or Magufuli or Kagame, if he's got a deputy, it's a normal business. The fact that President Moi, or rather President Kenyatta, is having a meeting with his deputy, and then it becomes breaking news, it only points in one direction, that the two have not been meeting, and the two are pulling in two different directions. And if you try to join the dots, it's got nothing to do about something people in social media are describing as a bromance. We're having the State of the Nation address, and the president has to calm some waters. If you read at the body language, he went there to calm waters, and that's why the leadership of the National Assembly was quickly summoned to come for that meeting. So it's got nothing to do with the turbulence in Jubilee, but everything to do with the State of the Nation address. And in my view, these meetings, we should be shedding tears. We should be embarrassed as a nation that when the president is meeting his deputy, it becomes a national news item, it becomes breaking news, and we are spending hours on end to do that. What is President Kenyatta supposed to be doing? Is it not meeting his deputy? Is it not meeting with his cabinet? And the MPs who quickly do news conferences, and you know they're issuing threats to James Orengo, and you know throwing insults at him. Then you got the Didmas Baraza, even to the extent of asking the good creator to call Raila Odinga. What kind of rubbish is that? I mean, you have people dying in Turkana and Baringo. You would expect those MPs to apply their energies, to apply the intellectual infrastructure and the capital to growing our economy. But the best they can do, using taxpayer resources, is to go to the media room at the National Assembly and start eating on James Orengo and start eating on Raila Odinga instead of focusing the elephant. The elephant in the room is not that Ruto is going to be impeached. What if Ruto gets impeached? They lose his job, somebody else will be appointed. Yes. But there are people who are going to be dying, or rather who are dying in Turkana, who are dying in Baringo, who are losing jobs, who are facing foreclosure. When somebody dies, he dies, unless those MPs have got powers to resurrect those people. So in my view, these are some of the guys we are supposed to call out, and we tell them that they are actually, I'm trying to use a parliamentary language, that they are misleading the nation. They have lost their focus. The duty of a member of the National Assembly is not to wake up every single day in the morning and defend Raila Odinga, or defend Uhuru Kenyatta, or defend Samuel Ruto. Their primary duty is to ensure that they go to the National Assembly, come up with legislation that catalyze the socio-economic activities in Kenya, so that by the time Museveni is coming to Kenya, they know the kind of conversations we are going to have. But what would they do here? They are shouting at decibels that who is going to be seen more loyal to the deputy president. I mean, you saw them struggling. How do you have a mature member of the National Assembly saying that I'm going to ask God to recall Raila Odinga? What kind of rubbish is that? How do you have a mature member of the National Assembly claiming that ODM wants to organize a coup? How do you have a mature member of the National Assembly claiming that ODM has got a strategy to antagonize Jubilee? And I want to dare these MPs, if they have the guts, if they have the balls, let them look at their party leader in the eye. That's President Uhuru Kenyatta. Because Raila Odinga did not invite himself to the handshake. It's two parties that met outside the Rambe House, they had an handshake. So instead of tiptoeing around issues, beating around the bush, let them stop attacking Raila Odinga. Let them look at President Uhuru Kenyatta right in the eye and tell him, Mr. President, we have lost confidence in him, in you, because whatever you are doing is unacceptable. And you know the president, because he addressed this issue a few days ago at State House. He told them, I won an election, yes, but my mandate is to take care of all Kenyans, whether or not they voted for me. Yeah. So instead of these MPs spending hours on end, I don't know whether there is a stipend or a per diem they get after making this noise, but let them start building the nation. All the noise about this impeachment and saying that it's a motion of confidence in anybody does not in any way improve the lot of Morai in Kisii. Because Morai wants to sell her tea and coffee, she wants to be sure that the road is going to be done. Now these MPs are here jumping from one rally to another. They're not even going through the budget proposals. Then in 3 weeks' time, when Uhuru goes to their constituency or the DP goes to their constituency, they'll start saying, tunaomba serikali. Yet, in the National Assembly, they're supposed to be passing these laws. And in my view, next time we go to the elections, we must run away from this rubbish called Kumira and Tibim, so that we elect people on the basis of their personality and their contribution. Majority of these MPs, the only reason why they went to the House is because they were part of the Kumira flood, or they were part of the Tibim Tialala flood. That's why you are getting this kind of mediocrity.
Very interesting. We'll definitely dissect that particular move to impeach, to try and impeach Deputy President William Ruto, even as we continue with the discussion. Speaking of political events, there's one happening in Wajir in terms of the Building Bridges initiative in the northeastern quarter. Expected to attend Governor Oparanya, but already in attendance is the Majority Leader Aden Duale. We'll definitely get some insights as we continue following the events live, as you can see on your screen. And of course, a couple of statements should be said in terms of the country's political agenda, the way forward, especially since our National Assembly Leader of Majority, Aden Duale, is attending. We'll keep you updated. Our reporter Shadrach Miti is following up on that particular live event in Wajir. We'll definitely keep you updated. But a lot more going on right here on the Sunday edition. When we come back from this short break, we'll dissect the move by Uganda President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni jetting into the country. We saw it seems to be a shot in the arm for Kenya's railway project, that is Standard Gauge Railway. We well know of what actually happened. Nairobi offered Kampala land to construct a dry port in Naivasha, 100 kilometers west of Nairobi, where the second phase of Kenya's Standard Gauge Railway line terminates. Let's just take a look at what this means for the country. A couple of individuals highlighted the fact that it seems Kenya might be short-handed in terms of making this move, but we'll definitely keep you updated even as